Hello, this is Lee and
Kelly.
we are here to talk to you about change for the health of it. So you're in the right place if you are looking to grow, learn more about yourself, and create an awareness that allows you to reach your goals, whether they be in health or wellness. Like I said, I'm Lee and I am an ACE certified health coach. My passion is helping people heal their relationship with food and their relationship with movement to have healthy habits that let them be their happiest and their healthiest.
I am also a health coach. I am certified with IAN and I'm also an esthetician. I focus on building beauty from the inside out, and I do that by concentrating on gut health and emotional health, and that in turn helps heal inflammatory skin conditions and hair conditions.
All right. So today I'm really excited for this podcast. I honestly think, based on where my clients are at right now in the year, that talking about balance is a pretty good thing to jump into at this point. What do you think, Kel?
I think so too, and I think this is something that, like you said, comes up with clients a lot. This kind of all or nothing mentality, and like when people get really excited, or like clients get really excited about like a new program or a new regime, they're like, "I'm gonna do it."
You
You're
know
like,
what? I haven't walked once in 10 years. This means 7 walks. And it's like, no.
"I'm gonna do the treadmill on a 12 incline."
Woo, good luck to your booty.
For real.
And so it's like, it's not that walking 7 days a week is impossible. It's not that hitting that 12 incline is impossible. It's just that it sometimes takes a little work to get to these things. So let's jump right in. What do you think the all or nothing mindset really is, Kel?
So I think it's kind of a really black and white mindset. Like you don't
Ah,
observe anything in the middle. It's either, like it says, all or nothing. You can't accept a middle point. It's the extremes. And I feel like when you have that kind of mentality, it's very easy to have it be anxiety provoking. And
ooh, tell me more about that. That's I really like can resonate on a personal level, but I've also seen that play out so many times with clients I work with. Where do you see that happening?
well, I think it also like weaves back into what we've been talking about in early episodes as well, talking about perfectionism. And it just makes things seem really unattainable. Whereas if you're setting these goals, like we've talked about in our first podcast, you see the achievable things that you can do, opposed to just having this thing where you're always like, I'm almost there, I can get it. And you're just always, giving it your all and not necessarily getting results that you can measure, or results that you feel like are really making a difference. So I feel like
100%.
it can get very exhausting. What about
A
you? What
hundred
is your
percent.
idea uh, of an all or nothing mindset?
I've thought about this a lot. And I honestly, so I look at this now through the like a lens of behavioral psychology.
Mm,
I look at the all or nothing as a means of us connecting to one of our most core things that we need to do, which is survive. And I
mm,
think that when you think about all or nothing, a lot of the time, it's just that you want to take the thinking out of what you're doing and make a rule. I walk every day. I don't have to plan what day I'm going to walk. I don't have to sit and look at my calendar to see if that's realistic. I don't have to wonder how to scaffold and build this goal up. New rule, I walk every day. And so I saw your go.
yeah, because I actually didn't even think of it like that, but that is actually a very, very good point. It's like your brain goes on autopilot. You don't need to be present.
Yes. And so it ties back to what we talked about last episode with awareness. When I see people using the all or nothing mindset, I'm like, what are you hiding from? Because most of the time, it's someone who's like, I really want to do this thing. I want to do it so bad that I want to say I'm going to give it my all.
Right.
Give it all. Here you go. Take every energy dollar I've got. I want this more than anything. But at the end of the day, a lot of times why people think that like having their own healthy lifestyle isn't meant for them is because sustainability is what comes into play.
Yeah.
And so the other thing I look at as the all or nothing mindset is if you're living into that, your plan most likely isn't sustainable for the long term. So if you're
Right.
on some program that, like Kelly mentioned, and it's asking you to work out daily when you haven't been working out for years, or to eat 150 grams of protein when you are currently eating 20 to 30 grams of protein, right?
If that.
Like it just isn't realistic to go, I'm going to go from black to white. And so
Right.
what we're hoping to kind of delve into is how to move past this protecting yourself through creating these rules that aren't serving you, or you wouldn't be here with us, right? And figuring out what you actually want and how to build steps to it. So, but I think before we like dive into that, I'm wondering what you're thinking, Kelly, in terms of like, where does this mindset, do you see this mindset connect with our culture? Because I definitely feel like our society has a special twist of this that like you're not seeing in like European countries and other places.
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because you and I just both came back from trips. You were in London,
Yes.
and then, I was in the Middle East. And I think there's this very romanticized idea about our culture, which part of it is true. America is the country where dreams come true. And it can be. If you're willing to work hard, America is the country where dreams come true. And I think us in particular, we look down on what we call laziness. And I do it in quotes because laziness is basically not working a 60, 70-hour week. I mean, even, a 40-hour week, somebody's like, you work 40 hours? And to me, I'm like, 40 hours is a lot. I don't work a 40-hour week.
How many hours are we meant to, right? Like that brings into the question of like, why do we have this expectation of ourselves to work as much as like, say, I don't know, machines?
Right.
And I think you're spot on. Like,
right.
It's
glorified. It's very
Yes.
glorified. The harder you work, the more you earn. Like it's hustle now. And, our culture is very much about status symbols. You want the bag, you want the shoes, you want the car, you want the clout that goes with it. If you don't have these things, then you're not successful. And I think especially with the younger generations, that's, a very big thing, unfortunately. And if you don't have those things, then you're not successful and you're lazy and, you're not working hard. And it's like you said in the beginning, it's not sustainable. You get exhausted, you disconnect, you don't have strong emotional bonds, you're anxious, you're depressed. It leads to overeating, all these things that you and I see with our clients about, chronic illness, gut problems, skin problems. This all comes from essentially this all or nothing mentality that's making us exhausted.
Absolutely.
So I feel like you said, it's a big cultural thing. Do you obviously think that too, but do you have anything to add to that?
Well, what you were saying was bringing me back to when we were talking about when you're setting goals and you're looking at what's realistic. One of the most important things you first define is what you want in your life, what your life and what your why is. And I heard you kind of like summarize lessons you and I definitely learned. I mean, if you check out my closet from my 20s, I have random purses I've used maybe twice. And it's like, why was I so obsessed with toy purse? Like, where was I going? Like, and so it's like, I think that's something that the sooner you can do, the more you're going to get out of life, because you're right. The cars, the purses, the whatever, typically that's not really what we're wanting. It's not going to offer us fulfillment or meaning in our lives. But when you're finding it difficult to find authentic fulfillment and meaning, it is something that can make you feel like you've achieved something.
Right.
And so distinguishing what your life. Exactly. And so that as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, exactly. Like oftentimes it's a way to cover up your real lie with consumerism, which we're all guilty of.
Yeah. And I think to what you were saying too, you have to have that awareness. Last episode, you have to have that awareness of what you want to do in your life and what's important to you. And it is hard to figure that out. And especially like we were saying, in a society that pushes, success and, status symbols on you, it's hard to separate yourself from that, especially younger, because I'm thinking back to, like you said, 20s. I mean, me too. There was a point where like I would only wear designer things, and I'm thinking to myself, why? It was because I was insecure. Like
Yes.
I didn't know what I wanted at that point. I was insecure. I was trying to make myself feel good. I was like designer clothes, like, ooh, status symbol. Like
Well, and
people
that's what
will
we're taught,
respect me.
right?
Yeah.
Like from as early as I can remember, I was taught at limited two.
Yes.
Showing my age, do not care. But like I remember it was like, oh my God, they got the purple flip-flop from limited two. How am I gonna get my like it starts before you're even aware of it or thinking about it. It starts when you are a little baby trying to fit in. And I think it's so important when you're challenging all or nothing to go, I don't need to do someone else's stuff. I need to figure out what I really want because that's how it's going to be sustainable, but it's also how I'm going to actually make sure I'm getting what I want out of all this work I'm about to put in.
Right. Right. And I think that the other important thing, like you were saying, when you're figuring out your goals, like the Beatles say, money can't buy you happiness. I mean, it certainly helps in the
It can
process,
make
but
things easier.
it can make things
Yes.
easier. Yes, you and I talk about this idea of like financial freedom a lot.
Yes.
And it can definitely make things easier, but it's not going to make you happy. At the end
No.
of the day, like that's not going to make you happy. You can have all the money in the world and be the most miserable person ever.
Well, I think we know that, right? Like we if you look at celebrities and look at news, like their lives are some of the hard, like they're held up by this like weird jarring thing of having it all but not really having freedom. So it's like that's why knowing your why is so important. Maybe for them that was enough, they didn't care. But
Right.
if you go into that and you're not aware that that could be the outcome, suddenly you're looking around like, and so it just matters that you're doing it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. Do you feel like there's a time where the all or nothing mentality has served you? Or maybe the better question is, when has it not served you? Is there a specific example you can think of?
So I really wanted to think of a time like, was there ever a moment where all served me? Because I can think of 1,000 times where it was not serving me, where all or nothing served me. And the honest answer is the only thing I've ever felt like all could serve was movement. And then I learned, like, so if you'd asked me 2.5 years ago when I was a kickboxing trainer, and I was giving my all to movement because it was my job,
Yeah.
and I was also working out after my shifts.
Yeah.
And so, I was burning about 10,000 calories a week. And I thought I was at my strongest because that's the strongest I had ever been. Right? So you can only compare to your lived experience. And so at the time, I was like, ooh, look at me. Yeah, I got it. I'm doing movement. I'm doing it like I've heard other people do it. I'm all in. And I did get thinner, and people were like, oh my God, look at you. And I actually remember, I won't drop any names, but family members who were straight up like, what are you going to do when you're not kickboxing training? Aren't you going to, how will you look? So I offer you that all might feel like it's serving you if you don't know what the better option is. There might be times where you believe it and you're like, no, this is the moment. I'm doing it all. And guess what? That doesn't mean it's what your body needs.
Right.
Fast forward 2.5 years later, I'm not burning 10,000 calories a week. I'm focusing on restorative movement with kickboxing and strength training. Not only am I the same pant size, but all of my metrics of health are better, including an inflammation one that is like huge for autoimmune disease and shows that I am not just in remission, but getting progressively less inflamed as we go on. After I made a shift and added restorative movement to my program.
Yeah.
And so I just think like, no, all or nothing will probably not be your answer. But you don't need to beat yourself up if it's feeling good right now and you're just like, but I'm so scared to lose this attachment I have to how I'm eating, how I'm moving. This is what feels comfortable. It's okay to try things. No one's going to force you to keep doing it if it really was what was best for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
And
do
I
you think?
think too, like with the all or nothing mindset, if you're doing all and you're not aware of what the consequences will be down the road, then of course you're going to keep doing all. But I,
Yes.
I think like that mentality switch comes in when you realize, like you're saying, energy dollars that it's going to cost
Yes.
you, what's going to happen down the road. Once you become more aware, not of only of the present, but of what can happen in the future, um, I think that's also when mentality starts to shift. I
100%.
was also trying to think of like when the all or nothing mentality has helped me, and in every single aspect of things that I cover with my clients, whether it's gut health or skin or like regrowing your hair, nothing that I have done when I've been in my panic state. When I've been in my
Yes.
panic state and I'm like, oh my God, I can't eat food and keep it in. Like I have such bad malabsorption. The malabsorption is affecting my hair.
Yes.
My melasma is flaring because my hormones are out of balance because of my gut. I'm gonna do everything I can do. And it never works. It never works. You just keep spending more money on other products, other programs, other services. And also, you're just doing so many things, you can't even keep track of what's working for you. So
I
I
mean,
think, again,
you just blew my mind because I hadn't even thought about the fact that if you're doing all, it doesn't mean you're doing all consistently.
right, it doesn't
I'm,
mean that you're doing it consistently. But even
yeah,
if you are doing it consistently, there are so many things that you are doing. There are things in there that probably aren't working, but you're not going
right.
to know what those
Oh,
things are because it's mixed in with the things that are working, and you're going to be so scared to start cutting things out and kind of doing like this elimination diet to see what's working for you and what's not. And if you had just started that way in the beginning of introducing things gradually, monitoring your progress, seeing what's working for you, what's not working for you, you wouldn't have, I don't want to say you wouldn't have been in that situation, but it would have been easier to figure
well, it
out.
wouldn't have taken you as long to figure
Right,
out a solution. And
right,
if you're in that panic state, you're in it because that's how desperate you are for a solution.
right. And it probably would have saved you a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of frustration in the end, and it would have quelled the anxiety faster. Because once you start spending money, you're like, oh my God, I'm going to have to maintain this. And that's a whole other slew of things. So,
You're spot on because I think what you're saying also is like it's okay to be results driven, but if you're trying so many things at once that you don't even know what's benefiting you, where the results are coming from, then long term, you're not actually supporting your desire to be results driven.
right,
And you mentioned like elimination diet or like tracking habits, and that's exactly right. If we're looking at something, the idea is to try to figure out what's working through tracking the consistency of which you are doing that thing and seeing if there is related change.
right,
And I think we want to skip that part, right? We want to go, but this is the thing and it works perfectly, all done. And often, if you're seeing a health coach, it's because you're in a position now where you've gone to doctors, you've gone to specialists, you've tried every drug under the moon, and no one can help you figure things out. And so you need a partner in the work to sit there and go, this is what we need to look at here.
right.
And go through those layers to actually see where the results can be found.
Yeah, and I think, before we got on, you were actually giving me a really good example of this, of somebody that's been on the program and just keeps on like adding things.
Uh-huh.
And you need to be, we got to stick to the program. We
Right.
got to stick to the program, see if it works, and then go from there. If it's working, why are we adding more things in? You're going to ruin the batter.
Oh.
Oh, right.
And
Oh,
that's right, because we always think more is better.
right.
Like we just have to keep adding. And actually, for the body, anything you're doing to it, you're stressing it out. So anything extra you're taking, what you eat, how you eat, are you eating slowly, quickly? Like, I don't think as humans we understand that when we throw ourselves all into something, that actually means we're ignoring the other things our body needs 90% of the time. So now your body's not functioning well. If your body's not functioning well, you're not going to get better results from the thing that was bothering you. And now you think it's not working.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that you and I see or I know I see usually when I'm onboarding a client for the first time, is they're so not necessarily excited, but they're like, I've done
Urgent.
this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. And they want to tell you everything they've done because they've done so much and they want
Yes.
you to know I've done so much. And you're like, whew, that's a lot. How does it make you feel? Like, what has been working for you? And they often say, I don't know. And that's why I'm
Absolutely.
here. And I think you did a great job of breaking it down of, what we do as health coaches is we really, and people get frustrated because it's a slow process.
Yes.
We have to play detectives and we have to say, well, okay, if we take this one product or if we take movement or if we start eliminating this food, how does it make you feel? And everybody wants to do everything all at once because it's that instant gratification culture. And I think that's really the beauty of a health coach is having somebody there that's willing to, slow down and really peel
Literally.
apart the layers of the onion.
No, I can't tell you how many times my clients have been like, I've never had someone to tell me to do less workouts. Like, this is
Right,
just, this makes
right,
sense. And it's like, yeah, man, like, this isn't about what's the perfect program. And I think that so often that's why people lean into all or nothing and think all is the answer, because what they compare their current self to is some idea of perfection, the all that someone taught them was the perfect solution. And whether it doesn't matter what it looks like, but for me, it looked like 1,200 calories, cardio every single day. That had been drilled into me since I was 6 years old. So guess what I believed? If you didn't do those two things every single day, you were merely a failure. And I believed that about myself. I believed I wasn't athletic. Now, I will tell you why this is so funny. Sure, in high school, I sucked at basketball. Loved it, sucked at it. But like, once I started boxing and swimming, I was a lifeguard, I was teaching swim lessons. Like, no, I wasn't unathletic. I wasn't athletic compared to my level 9, almost Olympian gymnastics sister, right? So my all brain was like, well, if you're not doing double back tucks off the, off the balance beam, you are a sucker. And I believed that into my 20s, right? So it's important to also question, where am I getting my definition of what all and nothing even looks like?
right. What is your narrative? Yours was Katie, mine was Kate.
Right.
Kate was amazing in school. Kate graduated summa cum laude. Like, Kate is so, 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 so smart. And that doesn't mean that I'm not smart, which I believed until a few years ago when I got into nursing school. When I got into nursing school, I was finally like, yeah, I'm smart.
What?
But I mean,
But that is what happens. We don't question why our belief systems are the way they are.
right.
We could be torturing ourselves with these repeated patterns, giving it our all, right? Because we feel like we're investing so much energy, because we probably are. But you're not the same person that you were when you were 14. If you're sitting here like, when I was 14, I was a size 2 pants. It is time to ask yourself what you want now as a
Right.
grown ass woman,
Right.
because that's what you deserve.
Right. You need to recognize that your metabolism isn't the same. Like,
Sorry.
you're probably not running around the same way that a 14-year-old is. You probably have a much better appetite than you did when you were 14 and enjoy better food and drinks, which, amen, I will give that every day for.
Shout out to Enrique for being a foodie now.
Yes, but
Right?
I mean, I would much rather be a foodie and, wear the size 8 pants or whatever and enjoy my life than, be that size 2 person that I was when I was in my 20s. And, even I think it's funny, you and I had this talk one time. I don't remember quite how it started, but I was like, oh yeah, you were always like the skinny, pretty one.
Oh my God. Yes. This is perfect. This is so perfect. Sorry to interrupt. I'm just dying. Moments of my life where I was like, do I even understand my own life?
I don't even remember what you had said to me, but I just like looked at you like, excuse me,
And
what the fuck is wrong with
I
you?
said, Kelly, listen, okay, I just can't handle you today. Like, you're the skinny pretty one, just deal with it. And you just looked at me like this. What are you talking about? I was like, what are you talking about? And I just walking around feeling insecure with the person we love most. Why? Because someone taught us that our worth was simply from how we looked. And we gave that our all. We believed that with everything we got. We stopped prioritizing the versions of us that deserved love in order to do what we perceived as earning others' love.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's where it all gets you. It traps you in these fake narratives that you can't be successful, that you can't create change in your life, and that you don't deserve better because you won't do all.
Right.
Really just all bullshit, guys. Like,
Right.
anyone listening, Google this. Google it right now as I say it. The diet industry is a billion-dollar industry.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to understand that it is not a mistake that the diets you have tried have not worked for you.
Right.
They are simply systems of rules, like all or nothing, that have been put into place and sold. Most of them have this much research, this much, and the research that does come out shows that 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to not just gain the weight back, you're going to gain 20% more of that weight back. Google it. It's not a you thing. It's just not a you thing.
Yeah. And I mean, same thing in the beauty industry, how many products are targeted to, oh, this cream is going to lift and, this is going to tighten. And
I don't know what to believe.
No lotions and potions can lift and tighten, my friend. That is only procedures.
Ooh, the miracle one.
Right. But again, like it's billion-dollar industries and we are taught to buy into it. And, it's like this little anxiety in the back of our brain of like, oh, I have to do it all. I have to be perfect. I have to look a certain way. I'm going to spend the money, spend. And we don't even know what we're spending on.
100%. And I like anyone that's like, I don't know, maybe that's harsh. If you read Cosmo, don't stop.
That was a teenage Bible. Let me teach you how to give blowjobs. I remember that.
Literally, every single thing was like, here's how you please a man. Here's how you look good for a man. Here's what you buy to wear to the date. Here's the nail polish. So
here are the desserts you make for him. This is a whole meal that you're going to cook. And she's like, I'm sorry, is this the 1950s?
Well, but at the time, it felt very important to know every one of those details. You and I would go get those magazines. I remember, like, we were studying for a goddamn test. Yeah. And so, like, at some point, when you realize, like, a lot of who I am, I can't just pretend the society around me doesn't play a role in who I am. You've got fast food chains who are sending out chemical smells so that if you're near them, you are going, why do I want that? Because they're literally hunting you, sending scents into the air. Like, if you Google how many ingredients are in Doritos, you'll find they hit their millionth ingredient because they keep chemically engineering them to be more and more delicious. No, they're actually just trying to make it so that your chemicals in your brain tell you need that food. And so I used to think like that was crazy. And I'm like, well, then why are they testing it in labs and testing it on people to make sure that it's exactly what people want? That actually is the exact purpose of what they're doing.
Yeah.
You can't separate yourself from where you live.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's a really good point. All the points that we made, I feel like were very good points, but it is.
It is. We can't keep living this way.
It is. And it's amazing once you realize what's going on and once you're able to separate from it. But it takes a lot of awareness and time to be able to go, I don't need the bag. I don't need the McDonald's. The whole food industry is tricking me. Like the whole beauty industry is bullshit. Like it takes time. And I mean, I don't mean to trash talk it because those are our two industries, but it's
And we're
very true.
passionate about them, but you have to
Right.
know how to navigate them. And I
Yes.
think, again, we don't want you leaving this thinking beauty bad, right?
Right.
That would be all or nothing. And we're not saying that. If
Right.
there are certain things you like or certain things you want, what we're saying is know what those are and give
Right.
those your energy.
Right. Or like don't do the 12-step Korean skincare routine. Like you can do a 2-step routine. It's okay, my friend.
Maybe
Like
get some sunscreen. I learned something.
or add movement in, make sure you're hitting your water goals. Start simple. It doesn't have to be I'm doing everything all at once because you're not going to succeed. And
And I
you're
think
just going to drive yourself crazy in the process.
right. And for what? Again, are you going to even get those results?
Right, right.
So I think essentially we've come to the conclusion that balance is the answer, right? That ultimately, if you're going all or you're going nothing, what you're really doing is probably not connected to results or what you actually want. So if balance is the answer, when is a time that you push through all or nothing? And you found that you're like, oh, actually, when I do a more balanced approach here and I set my own goals and I stay aware, I see better results.
I think probably when I was having all of my issues with my gut stuff. So when that started happening, like I said, I freaked out. I started doing everything. My issue was malabsorption. I was convinced I had SIBO. Anything I ate, like I would bloat. I went to every single doctor. They're like, no,
Remember?
it's stress. And I'm like, it's not just stress. Like my hair is falling out. Like my skin is awful. Like
Right.
my liver enzymes are elevated. Like all of my inflammation enzymes are up and through the roof. I'm like, it's not just stress. Like stress can do a lot of things, but like I can eat 5 foods right now. Five
Right.
foods. Um, and so I remember I did like this crazy, I don't even remember what it was called. It was like beef liver and diatomaceous earth, and it was
During the pandemic, right?
crazy. Yeah, I was coming to see you and I was
It was
researching it at the airport and I was like, I'm gonna do it. This is gonna be the thing that's gonna fix me. And it was crazy, all the things that I ordered. And I got maybe halfway through the program and I was like, I can't do this. I can't keep up with it. And that was what during COVID. And I wasn't even working at that point and I couldn't keep up with
at
it.
it. It was sustainability. It was
Right?
sustainability.
Right. And I feel like, once got once I figured out that, ease the inflammation, work on motility, and then add things back in. You and I talk to our clients about that a lot. Um, it was much more sustainable, even though it was still a lot of steps because I was seeing results. And I had taken the time with each step to figure out what I needed to do. And even though it was still a little tedious, I was feeling better. And so I stopped doing everything under the sun. I still picked something that was a little intensive, but it gave me the results. And then I was like, okay, we're good. So I feel like there was balance in that. There were still things that were time consuming and that, took planning. Like you said, I couldn't just shut off my brain.
Right.
But, balance. And the program that I'm doing now is good and it keeps me where I need to be. And my body has found balance too, which I think is the biggest thing is that, my body is happy. It's not angry with me right now.
No, I mean, honestly, something that really stood out in your example to me was like, when you were doing everything, you were like, I didn't even know what results I was getting. Like, it was almost like it was just such torture. You could only focus on the torture, right?
It was.
You can't even learn anything or try. And it's like, so how are you going to do it forever then? How will you continue, maintain? Like, you don't want to just end up with the same gut issues a year from now.
Which I did with that program. I did it for 6 months and I was like, I'm done doing it. And then my problems were worse because I didn't complete their program.
No, and that's such a common thing where it is easy to jump headfirst into all or nothing. It's really hard to actually sustain that energy. And so, like, that's what. And the other, I think like the stress thing is also just so important to like actively call out from your example, because I work with pretty much exclusively women, and in that space I just constantly see how much like doctors just love to be like, nah,
You're
nah.
hysterical. You're hysterical.
Headphones came out. They're just like, no, you're good. It's just stress. And it's like,
Right.
okay, if someone's presenting with
Right.
different symptoms, their hair is falling out, their skin's messed up, they can't eat, they can't sleep, they can't properly use the restroom, we call those the basic functions of the human body. And at some
Right.
point, even if it is stress, it's not enough to go, good luck.
Right. It's stress. Just work on not being stressed. It's so simple. Just don't be stressed.
I will get that done in late capitalism, no problem.
Right. Or like my other favorite thing is like, oh, there's nothing wrong. And it's like, I live in my body. I know what feels right and I know what feels wrong. You can't sit here telling me that there's nothing wrong when I know that there is.
Absolutely. And to stand firm in that and say, like, I'm going to keep trying. I think that's why both you and I became health coaches, because we know what it's like for you with your hair, with your gut issues, skin issues that you've managed. For myself with my autoimmune disease, we know what it is like for someone to look at you and be like, hey, your autoimmune disease is 1 in a million. Don't know how to help you, but hey, try a buffalo burger. And I swear to God, that's what the first doctor that diagnosed me told me. To eat buffalo burgers, to this day, it haunts me. Because I just said, okay. And I should have been like the Elmo, just the fires. Like, that's how silly it can get in these situations. And it's like, you know, when clients come to us and they say something like, actually, I've heard I have to eat 20 buffalo burgers in a week. This is why someone probably told them that all was the thing that would solve autoimmune disease. Yeah.
So what about you? What's your example of when you've pushed through the all or nothing mindset and you've found peace and balance?
So for me, this definitely, I had to answer it about food because it just wouldn't even have been authentic to me to not. I think how I looked at food was absolutely, you eat good or you eat bad. But I will be more honest than that. I didn't really think you ate good or bad. I thought you were good or bad. I think that distinction matters because it means that every time you go to sit down to eat a meal, you're making a moral decision about who you are as an individual on this planet.
Yeah.
So every time you go, I'm going to eat, and you look at a fruit or you look at a bag of chips, you're sitting there going, am I a good person or a bad person? And then wondering why that's immensely stressful for you each engagement. And wondering why over the years, you've just said, thrown the apples away and said, I actually don't even have to ask myself that question. Watch this. I'll just eat what I want. And now I don't have to wonder if I'm a bad person. And then it catches up, at least for me, it caught up for me years later. And you look around and go, it isn't what I wanted. And it's really frustrating because you realize if 5 years ago you had slowed down and tried to create balance with food, then you wouldn't be as in such a bad state as you're in now. And so that's, for me, what I really learned is that when I look at something, and the perfect example is the add-on method that I teach my clients. Say I had those apples and that apple and chips. Now I would go, great, I'll have an apple and I'll have some chips until I'm full. Because that's what balance looks like. Balance does not look like you then just decide, here are the 10 foods I'm allowed, and then I can eat fruits and veggies. For me and for many of my clients, especially if you're someone that needs to heal your relationship with food, balance is going to look like honoring what you want to eat and serving your body with what you need to eat, and refusing to give on or give in to either of those. Refusing to say, I'm not allowed what I need, or I'm not going to have what I want.
Yeah.
Because you can't be healthy without mental health.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you guys, but if you're afraid of an ice cream, that's not health.
Or you're at the restaurant and you're going, the bread smells so good, and somebody says, have a piece, and you go, no.
Now, what I will say is, if you don't want those things, I'm not talking to you.
Right, but
Okay?
if you're literally going and
Exactly.
salivating at the bread, have a piece of bread.
Right. Why
Have a
does
piece
it
of
have
bread.
to be, wait, am I going to be good tonight and have like water, chicken, some green, and a salad? Or am I going to be bad tonight and have alcohol and the pasta dish and 5 pieces of bread? Again, you feel that way? You feel that urgency to engage in that way, in that all mindset, because you're not allowing yourself balance. When you hit your nutritional needs around protein, fiber, water, and allow for meaningful engagements like that slice of bread Kelly described, where in the moment it really does have meaning to you, it really does contribute to what you are doing and feeling, then you will learn that balance allows you to have both what you need and what you want. And ultimately, do you really want to live your life asking yourself if you're good or bad over what you're putting on your plate? Like, I just don't think anyone on this planet deserves that kind of pressure. You are not a bad person because you like pizza. Everyone likes pizza. Like, everyone.
I question people who don't.
Now, I won't mention that, of course, my favorite is Hawaiian, because I know the haters are going to hate.
Oh, no, we both love Hawaiian.
No, I know, but the
we
haters.
just love different types of Hawaiian.
Why? Because I had red bell pepper.
Yes.
I almost fell off the stool.
And I put buffalo sauce on mine. Not buffalo, barbecue.
I was like,
sauce.
What?
No, not buffalo. That did deserve that face.
Happen? I won't comment, but my God.
It was a B word.
All right, Cal. So what do you think if someone is stuck in this all or nothing, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is one concrete step you would say, or two, where they can get started in trying to move away from that?
So I think, like you talked about earlier in the episode, really identifying your why, that all is so important to you. And figuring out if it actually really is that important in the long run. Like, am I exercising 7 days a week to be super skinny? Why is being super skinny so important to me? Is it important to me because I actually want to be super skinny and look like that and not have a butt or boobs? Sorry. And, am I doing it because it's societal standards? Am I doing it because it's something that's been ingrained in me since I was young? Figuring out why you want this thing that you're throwing your all towards is so important. And if in the end you decide that's the thing that you actually want to do, that's okay. That's okay. If you truly want to be super skinny, that's okay. But then the next step is to make steps. You can't do balls to the wall. It's not sustainable. So start making your steps, start making your goals, and go from there.
I absolutely agree. I think it's kind of funny to think that, like, we might jump into starting to do stuff before we even pause to think about why we want to do it. But I think it goes back to that panic mode you mentioned earlier in the app, because it's like, yeah, you might not be thinking super logically about something that there's clearly a pain point attached to. Yeah, you've been trying to work on this for how many years? Oh, I'm shocked that you couldn't suddenly just change your entire mindset about, like, it might take a little time, and you might realize that creating balance is one of the things that has been hard and one of the reasons you've been living into all or nothing. But once you practice it, like anything else, practice makes progress, and you'll learn how to naturally live a more balanced life.
Yeah. And like you said, it's a muscle, and the more you do it, the easier it is to apply it to other aspects of your life. In the beginning, it might be anxiety provoking, it might feel scary, it might feel weird, but in the end, you're probably going to feel a lot better.
Absolutely. I think if you're listening and you're like, okay, it's sleep for me, it's food for me, it's movement for me, Whatever it is, choose one habit, one thing you want to grow on. Maybe it's GI health. Maybe it could be anything under the sun. What you are going to do is track your reality for the next 2 weeks. So if you're doing movement, I want you to not make any changes. For the next 2 weeks, every day, track how much you move. Why? You can't set a goal if you don't even know where you're starting, right? Like, think back to like when you were in school and you would have to take a baseline test.
I was going to say baseline. Yeah.
Literally, there is data that shows that in order to make maximum progress, you have to know your baseline starting point. How will you even track from where you're going, right? So for 2 weeks, you do nothing. You're just going to track. This is how much I move Monday through Sunday. And then based on those results, so say you are someone that's just really getting into this, you, out of those 2 weeks, 1 week you walk once, 1 week you walk twice. You go with the high number. Your goal for the next week is 2. Then you add week to week. You don't add on a week where you got a work trip. You don't add on a week where your kid's sick. You add on the week where it feels like I can do this. And the reason it's so important is the number one thing you need to do to move away from all or nothing thinking is build your trust with yourself. You don't trust yourself to create balance, so you are trying to create rules you follow so you don't need to trust yourself. But ultimately, for the goal that you have, if it's movement and in your work life, in your relationships, not thinking isn't going to work, right? I know we all just want to be like, I'm done with my brain. But we all know if something's important, it's worth thinking about. And so honor yourself by tracking where you're at so that you actually have a chance to get where you want to go.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, like you said, and like we've talked about in other episodes, having those little goals that you hit just reinforces that you can do it. And Lee and I both know that you can do it.
We absolutely do. My onion friends, one letter at a time. Why, Kelly, when we cut these, what happens? We cry. Well, this was really awesome to get to chat with you guys about this mindset. We definitely see it come up all the time. We hope that you will let us know what you thought about the episode on Instagram.
Yeah, and definitely email us if you have any ideas for future episodes. When you start working on your goal this week, tag me and Lee on Instagram so we can follow you and we can cheer you along on the way. Yeah, we love to hear from you guys, and we will see you next episode.